Hey folks, this is Rhykker, bringing you a Diablo 3 patch 2.4 Season 5 guide on a mid-game wizard build that's great for farming your end-game gear. Now this build does require the full Firebird set, which is what prevents me from calling it a starter build, but you could be running with this build within hours of creating a fresh character in Season 5, because you can very easily get the full 6 pieces of your Firebird set by doing 3 simple things. First, when you reach level 70, you get the first 2 pieces of the Firebird set mailed to you. You can access your mailbox in the bottom left-hand corner. Next thing you want to do, kill Zoltan Cool at level 70 on Torment 2. That'll get you your next 2 pieces. Then lastly, do a Greater Rift level 20 solo. With your 4 pieces of Firebirds, you can definitely handle a level 20 solo Greater Rift. And at that point, you'll get your full 6 pieces of Firebirds and be able to run with this build. Now, this base build was created by Drahque, D-R-A-H-Q-U-E. You can find a link to this build on Diablo Fans in the description below. And the gameplay you're seeing follows a variant of this build. Let's take a look at the skills. First off, we use Black Hole Blazer. This skill is great at grouping up enemies as well as dealing some damage. Next, we want our main attack skill, Disintegrate Convergence. This skill does more damage the longer you channel it, and the Convergence rune gives us a nice wide beam so that you can strike more enemies at once. Next, we want Teleport Wormhole. That gives us some great mobility, and we're going to couple that with Diamond Skin Sleek Shell, which also gives us great move speed. You're going to notice a trend here as we go over to Storm Armor Scramble. Again, this is something that will give us more move speed under a specific condition. These 3 skills taken together give us great mobility, and at this stage of the game, what we really want to be doing is speed runs. We want to be going through rifts really quickly, we want to be bounty farming really quickly, and between teleport and the speed buffs from Diamond Skin and Storm Armor, you're going to be all over the place. In fact, don't even think of Diamond Skin as just a defensive buff. Use it as a speed boost. For our last skill, you see me using Meteor Shower, and I'll explain why I'm doing that in just a moment, but the base version of this build that depends on no gear other than the Firebird set should use Explosive Blast Chain Reaction. Again, we're going to be on the move, running through enemies will be charging at us, and these explosions will be going off all around you. Because of that, for our passives we want Audacity. More damage to enemies close to us. Again, this is for 1, the Explosive Blast, and 2, because with Disintegrate, you want to be channeling that beam for as long as possible, and that's going to give enemies time to close distance. Next, we want Astral Presence. Without additional gear, this build really runs Arcane Power hungry. This will help with that Arcane Power management. Next, we want Dominance. This gives us some nice survivability. And lastly, we'll take Mirror Image, and this is so that the cooldown on our teleport will be reset a lot more often, again granting us more mobility and more survivability. Now if you have a Hellfire Amulet and thus have access to a 5th passive, or if you're not using Explosive Blast, you have the option to swap out Audacity, and the passive to take in that case would be Unstable Anomaly if you're finding surviving is an issue. That'll be more if you're pushing Greater Rifts, or you can go with Conflagration. This will give more damage. And this is what I'm running with in the build that you're seeing me use. Now, because this is a starter build, we won't dive too heavily into the gear, but here are some things that will help make this build even better. If you can get the Traveler's Pledge and the Compass Rose, that's a set that really benefits this build. For your bracers, if you can get Ashnagar's Blood Bracer, that increases the potency of your shields by up to 100%, and that'll be a nice buff to your survivability. For your belt, if you can get Hergbrash's Binding, that'll make it so that you basically never run out of arcane power. For your other ring, if you can get a Convention of Elements, that'll give you a nice damage buff. Or if you get a Halo of Arlese, that'll give you a nice survivability buff. In that case, you would want to swap out your Storm Armor for Ice Armor, Crystallize. For your weapon, you have a couple options. You can go with a Death Wish, which will give you a nice buff to your damage while channeling Disintegrate, or you can go with a Wand of Woe if you're focusing on Explosive Blast. If that is the case, for your offhand, you want the Orb of Infinite Depth. But if you don't have that, then an etched sigil also works, and it will be the reason that you would swap out Explosive Blast for Meteor Shower. Because Explosive Blast has a cooldown and Meteor Shower does not, meteors will be constantly coming down on your enemies when you have the etched sigil throughout the time that you're channeling Disintegrate. Now, as you can see, I only have one legendary gem, and it's only rank 3. I only have one item in my cube, and it's not even benefiting my build. But if you want to make this build even more powerful, then the weapon you'd want to cube is a furnace, and then what armor and jewelry you cube will depend on what items you have. But here are some options. You either want to equip these or cube them. The Mantle of Channeling will make you deal more damage and take less damage while you're channeling Disintegrate. The Aquila Cuirass will cut your damage taken in half. The Harrington Waistguard will give you a huge move speed buff when running through rifts. And a Ring of Royal Grandeur might be necessary depending on what gear you find. As for legendary gems, the ideal ones would be a Bane of the Powerful, and you'd basically be moving so fast that you would never lose that buff once you kill your first elite, Bane of the Trapped, and a Boon of the Hoarder. The Boon of the Hoarder specifically is most useful once you get the gem to level 25 and get that move speed increase. As for specific stats on gear, standard gearing rules basically apply. As for Paragon points, you don't have many at this point. Basic rules apply. We're not going to go exhaustively through all this because again, this is a transitionary build to take you towards your end game build. That wraps up this guide. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment letting me know what wizard build you're using or going for. Check out these other videos. And if you enjoyed this one, share with friends, leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders.